Shibuya's morning hums like a low drum, crosswalk chimes, bicycle bells, steam rising from yakisoba stalls, and Hana Nakamura, 24, kneels on a blue tarp near the station, painting quick, tender cityscapes with a travel brush and a chipped porcelain cup for water. Her canvases are small: alleys at dawn, a girl and her dog, a broken neon sign reflected in rain. Coins clink into a tin beside her. She smiles and bows, repeating arigato with the soft rhythm of breathing. The world passes, and she gathers its light, selling it for enough rice, enough medicine, enough hope to carry home to a sixth-floor walk-up where the elevator never works. Across the crossing, a convoy of black sedans slows, doors open like the edges of a shadow. Ruji Sato, 36, moves with precise gravity, a dark suit without dust, a face carved by restraint. He is the son who remade a syndicate into a ledger, the rumor that carries its own silence. At his side, Kenji, strategist with sleeves rolled and eyes like cold tea. Behind, Daigo, ambitious, jaw tight, and Akiko, glamorous as a midnight bar in Ginza, lipstick like a signature. They thread through the crowd toward a gallery 2 streets away, a deal waiting in a room with white walls and hidden purposes. A street vendor stumbles, a bottle of Sumi ink bangs against a briefcase, cap loosens, and Ruji's hand snaps to catch it. The ink arcs, a slow black ribbon, and Hana looks up at the sound that doesn't belong to morning. The ribbon lands, across 3 of her fresh canvases, midnight slicing through dawn colors, a wound spreading in feathers. People gasp in that collective Tokyo and hail, polite even in shock. Hana's hand freezes around her brush, the world narrows to the black blooming over her work. Ruji doesn't flinch, he calculates the angle, the spill, the faces watching through phone lenses. Kenji steps forward with cash already counted, the exact value of paper and paint. Hana doesn't reach for the bills. They were going to be someone's window, she says, voice even as rain. You can't replace a view with a receipt. Daigo snorts, an apology in the shape of contempt. Akiko tilts her head, curious, beauty in a mess she didn't make. Ruji meets Hana's gaze and finds no tremor there, only a steadiness that makes his pulse refuse its discipline for one beat. She turns the ruined canvases over, ink bleeding through, and lifts the porcelain cup. It's okay, she says to the crowd more than to him, and rinses the brush slowly, as if gentleness could undo gravity. She does not bow for the money, she bows for the moment surviving. The crowd softens, coins clink louder, and someone murmurs that the black streak is beautiful. Hana almost laughs at that. Comment which city you're watching from and rate it 0 to 10 at the end. Ruji sets the cash on the tarp anyway, a neat stack that refuses drama. For the time we took, he says. Hana covers it with the ruined canvas like a cloth over an unwanted dish. For time, she replies, bring it back. Kenji's glance is a knife of warning. There's a schedule, a gallery, a world that runs on punctual brutality. But Ruji's eyes rest on the porcelain cup with its hairline crack, on the blue tarp taped at the corners, on Hana's hands, paint-stained and clean at once. He nods once to no one, then moves on. Phones have already framed the scene. By evening, Hana's feed swims with comments, 1,000 strangers arguing about art, kindness, danger, and whether a spill on a canvas is a crime or a collaboration. Some call her naive, some call her brave. One clip freezes on Ruji's profile and names him a ghost from the underworld, another insists he's a philanthropist hiding in a suit. Hana turns the screen face down and sets water to boil for miso, listening to her mother Keiko cough behind the sliding door. Keiko's room smells of shiso and meds. Photographs crowd the wall, Keiko young at a seaside festival, Hana with a cardboard crown from a childhood New Year's, a late father smiling from a boat no one sails anymore. Hannah changes a drip, hums a lullaby she learned from Keiko's soft whistles. "How is the morning?" Keiko asks, voice thin as rice paper. "Profitable in experience," Hannah says, inventing levity. Keiko smiles without breath and squeezes Hannah's paint-stained fingers, blessings passing skin to skin. Ruji sits in the white gallery among glass and silence while a curator speaks numbers that saute into the air and disappear. He remembers the ink ribbon, the girl who didn't bow to money, and finds his attention refusing to sharpen for a deal that would have sharpened years ago. Kenji fills the pause with figures. Akiko watches Ruji watch his own distraction and files it where tools live. Night thickens and a message arrives from a private account. "You stained my windows today. Come back with daylight." Ruji should ignore it. He doesn't. He asks Kenji to trace nothing and is satisfied when Kenji fails. The account is a borrowed ghost. In the morning he walks, alone for the first time in years, back to Shibuya with a small paper bag wrapped in twine. Hannah is there before the crossing counts its first song. The ruined canvases dry like bandaged birds. Ruji kneels and places the bag on the tarp. Inside rests a new porcelain cup, hand-thrown, uncracked, glazed in the blue of mountain shadows. "For water," he says. "And for time." Hannah studies it, then him. "You don't owe me." "I owe myself a correction," he replies, a sentence that tastes new in his mouth. The crowd senses a different scene and hovers respectfully close. Hannah pours clear water into the cup, dips her brush, and pulls a line over one ruined canvas, black meeting color, a kintsugi of paint, the fracture made radiant on purpose. "If a mistake must stay," she says, "let it become a road." Ruji watches a rule crumble somewhere inside him, a rule that mistakes must be erased to keep power intact. Kenji appears from nowhere, as always. "You're late," he tells Ruji, which means the city's clock has noticed. Hannah glances at the strategist whose eyes count exits. "He's early," she answers, which means she has made a rule of her own. Akiko's message pings from Ruji's phone. The board asks if our patron is in love with street paint. Ruji pockets the phone and does not answer to a board that does not exist. A gust flips Hannah's hair across her face. Ruji reaches without thinking and tucks the strand behind her ear, a gesture too intimate for the street, too human for his world. He withdraws his hand as if from a flame. Hannah lets the air fill the space again, unburned. "If you must pay," she says softly, "buy me lunch. My mother will eat half." The request is simple, treasonous to his routine, and shaped like a yes. They share onigiri and tea on the tarp edge while buses exhale behind them. Hannah talks about light and cheap paper that loves water. Ruji talks about nothing true and everything polite, until Hannah asks, "What do you do?" He considers the 1,000 answers that would protect her and picks one that doesn't. "I keep accounts. I keep people safe." Her eyebrow tilts. "From what?" "From themselves," he says, and hates the sound of it. When he leaves, the blue cup gleams in winter sun. Hannah paints the crossing's white stripes as rivers carrying strangers to their days. Ruji turns a corner and faces Kenji's quiet storm. "You invited a witness," Kenji says. "Or a teacher," Ruji answers. For the first time, Kenji does not have a plan that feels clean. Hannah's landlord climbs the stairs like a verdict and knocks with a knuckle made of months. "You're late again," he says, glancing past her at Keiko's oxygen tank. 1 week. Hannah bows and offers paintings as collateral. He eyes them as if color were a currency that might default. In the hallway, neighbors pretend to water plants that don't need it. At the market, medicine costs what art doesn't make in winter. Hannah counts coins with her breath held and hears the pharmacist's apology shaped like corporate policy. She trades one tube for a smaller one, whispers Gomen Nasai to no one and everyone, and tucks the receipt into the tin where all thin paper lives, rent slips, clinic notes, a promise to herself not to break. Ruji's world notices his detour. Daigo arranges a meeting in a bar that pretends to be a jazz club. The port wants our answer, Daigo says. We take the crates or we lose the docks. Ruji sips tea he hates. We lose the docks, he says. Our cargo changes. Daigo blinks, then smiles slowly, a crocodile learning a new river. Kenji remains still, calculating the price of virtue in a business that eats it. Akiko corners Ruji on a rooftop where the city stacks its neon like poker chips. You're bored of fear, she says. Dangerous. He looks over the rail at the narrow streets and thinks of a blue cup catching rain. I'm bored of lies, he says, and in Akiko's laugh there is admiration sharpened into warning. Hannah receives a message from a gallery. We saw the video. Come by. She goes with a portfolio bound by twine and hope. The gallery is white and quiet. The director wears black in curiosity. You are authentic, she says, a word that feels like a trap. We would like a series, Shibuya in Rain, with the black stroke. It's narrative. Hannah nods with her mouth and not her eyes. Narrative, she repeats, and thinks of Keiko's breath at night. On her way out, the elevator stalls. She climbs the stairs and finds Ruji waiting at street level with a convenience store bento, chopsticks tucked like sincerity. For your mother, he says. And for the teacher who told me to buy lunch. Hannah takes the bag and invites him to climb 6 flights that smell of cabbage and courage. He does, removing his shoes at the door as if entering a temple. Keiko's smile cuts through oxygen like sunrise through mist. Ruji bows low, Keiko bows lower from the bed. Hannah spoons rice into a bowl and watches the way Ruji holds chopsticks, precise, deliberate, learned under stern eyes. You came from a house of rules, she says. He nods. And knives. Keiko laughs, then coughs, and Ruji pours tea like an apprentice to something gentle. Daigo sends a photo to Ruji's phone, Hannah at her tarp, taken from a distance where malice hides. Pretty window, the caption reads. Ruji types nothing, saves the photo, deletes the message, and feels a new fear, a fear that isn't for himself. Kenji requests a private word and chooses a shrine where foxes stone guard the path. This cannot continue, he says without anger. Not because of optics, because of blood. People like us do not get to enter rooms like hers without staining them. Ruji drops a coin into the offering box and listens to its echo. Then help me build a doorway that doesn't ruin the floor, he says. Kenji's silence is a rare thing, consents shadow. Hannah returns to the street with a new rule. She will paint 1 canvas with the black stroke each day, an honest record of an accident becoming a design. People stop not to film but to breathe, and some cry without spectacle, seeing their own spills made beautiful. She feeds on that, then goes home lighter enough to carry medicine and dark enough to fear the bill. A test arrives as softly as paper, the gallery contract. Good money, fast. In exchange, exclusive rights, staged photos, a curated story where her blue tarp will be replaced with concrete polish to reflect wealth. Hannah sits at her low table and reads aloud to Keiko, whose eyes say the same thing her lips can't. Choose yourself, not their cage. Hannah holds the pen and waits for a sign that won't come. Ruji asks to meet by the river where lanterns practice for festivals. He brings no entourage, only a thermos and a question. What would it cost to keep your story yours? Hannah watches barges move like thoughts. Everything I don't have. Then I'll pay, he says. No strings. She smiles sadly. Your world is made of strings. You just pretend they're invisible. He takes the blow like a student. Teach me a knot that holds without choking, he asks. She considers, then reaches for the thermos he brought, pours tea into its cap, and sets it beside the rail. Start with this. When someone is thirsty, give them a cup before a name. He nods as if she has handed him a blade he's never seen. Kenji appears, as Wind does, with news that smells like rain. The port deal is dead, he says dryly. Daigo has found a new mountain to climb, one with bleaker paths. Ruji's jaw sets in a kindness that looks like steel. Make sure the path ends before the children play there, he says. Kenji bows, not to the order, but to the change. Hana signs the gallery paper with a single adjustment scribbled in the margins. I retain the right to paint in the street, to give away work at will, and to refuse any staged photograph with my mother. The director hesitates, then shrugs. Viral stories outrun clauses. Hana walks out with a check that feels like the weight of a future she hasn't met. On the crossing that evening, the crowd thins into twilight. Ruji stops at the edge and watches Hana slide the black across a sky. He doesn't step closer. He bows from a distance you would measure in breaths, and she returns the bow with a softness that feels like a door left open. The four poles of their orbit declare themselves, Daigo, hungry and loud, building ladders out of other men's bones. Kenji, strategic and weary, loyal to a fault into the idea that loyalty is a fault. Akiko, glamorous blade who decides which way to cut. And Aiko, a night shift nurse from the clinic, honest hands smelling of antiseptic and citrus, who buys Hana's smallest canvases and tapes them inside patient curtains like windows they can carry. Anchor objects gather meaning, the blue cup on Hana's tarp, the inked canvases that refuse erasure, Keiko's flowered handkerchief folded under a pillow, and Ruji's obsidian rosary of worry beads he never prayed with until the day he saw paint mend a morning. Each appears and reappears like musical motifs, subtle, stubborn, telling the same truth in new light. Choice 1, Hana will attend the gallery opening or she will paint outside it. She chooses both, sets her tarp at the door and sells to the line before stepping inside to bow at strangers who pronounce authenticity like a foreign dish. The director smiles tightly, the crowd loves the performance that isn't a performance. Choice 2, Ruji will send men to shadow Hana, or he will trust the city to keep her. He chooses a third path. Aiko walks her home after late markets, talking about soap operas and cheap recipes. Ruji watches from one block away, hands in pockets, a guardian angel who never learned how to glow. A gentle confrontation grows from kindness. At a noodle stand, Hana says, "You speak like a ledger." He answers, "You paint like a verdict." She laughs into her steam. "My verdict is softer. And therefore stronger," he says before he can stop the truth from leaving his mouth. Akiko finds them with her smile sharpened. "You have critics," she tells Hana, handing over a glossy magazine where a columnist calls Hana a prop in a gangster's rebrand. Hana reads in silence. Ruji's jaw turns to architecture. Akiko taps the page with a manicured nail. "You can bend this story," she says. "But every bend breaks something else." She leaves them with perfume and prophecy. Hana paints a city bus with permission and friends, a mural of crossing lines turning into rivers. Children dip their fingers in washable paint and leave stars where advertising used to shout. Ruji watches a grandmother cry at a blue cup painted larger than life and realizes he has never built anything people touched without fear. Daigo makes his move, a donation to the gallery in Hana's name, tied to a press conference she never agreed to. Reporters call her muse, mascot, miracle. They ask what it feels like to be a poor girl rescued by a rich man from a dark world. Hannah holds the mic like a brush and says, "Rescue is a word cowards use for teamwork when they didn't show up." The room stumbles, a child somewhere laughs, Aiko claps once and doesn't stop. Kenji corners Daigo in a garage that smells of rubber and rain. "You don't touch her," he says, each word a floorboard. Daigo smiles with all his teeth. "I touched a gallery, not a girl." Kenji steps closer. "Objects bleed more than people when you choose them right." Daigo's smile shrinks to fit his mouth. At Keiko's bedside, Hannah tells the truth she hides from crowds: fear of bills, fear of fame, fear of failing at both love and survival. Keiko reaches for the handkerchief and wipes a stray line of black from Hannah's wrist. "The world is an ink spill," she whispers. "We decide whether it becomes a road." Hannah presses her forehead to her mother's knuckles and breathes like someone surfacing. Ryuji brings a framed canvas he bought from a child at the bus mural, stick figures crossing a road holding hands. "For your wall," he says. Hannah hangs it above the low table with reverence she never gives to expensive things. "You spent well," she teases. "I'm learning," he answers, "and means more than money." Aiko invites them both to a night market where lanterns swing like punctuation marks and octopus balls burn tongues into laughter. They walk not side by side but in orbit, coming close, moving apart, learning the timing of a dance neither will admit they're dancing. When a drunk bumps Hannah hard, Ryuji's hand is there, steadying without claiming. She nods thanks without surrender. The gallery shows sell out, the street paintings multiply, the blue cup cracks further, hairlines becoming a map of use. Hannah refuses to replace it. "It understands water," she says. Ryuji buys a second cup identical to the first and never gives it to her. He keeps it as a reminder that not all gifts need to leave your hands to change you. Kenji appears at the river again with a different air. "We are closing doors," he tells Ryuji. "Daigo will find windows." Ryuji watches the tide twitch under wind. "Then board the windows," he says. "With kindness where wood won't hold." Kenji makes a sound like a laugh, discovering it has a soul. On a Sunday without alarms, Ryuji helps Hannah carry canvases up 6 flights. At the landing, he stops, chest rising with effort he never lets public see. "You're human," she says, mock wonder. "I'm learning," he answers, and they grin at each other like conspirators building a small country out of breath and paint. Night falls. From the window, they watch Shibuya's lights mist the air. Hannah sets the ruined first canvas on the floor, the one he spilled, now laced with gold and black, into something new. "If there is a future," she says quietly, "it must look like this, broken and beautiful on purpose." Ryuji touches the frame's edge and nods. "Then I will learn to hold it without breaking it worse." Morning slides over Shibuya like fresh lacquer, and Hannah arranges her tarp with ceremonial care, blue cup at the top right corner, brushes fan like ribs, a clean cloth folded over the inked canvases that have become her signature. Across the street, Ryuji leans near a vending machine pretending to choose a drink, worry beads moving once between his fingers, then stilled by will. The world feels newly tuned, like 2 instruments checking pitch in a crowded room, before sound becomes music. The 4 poles pull into position as if summoned by weather. Daigo, ambition sharpened to a point, steps from a sedan with a smile that says expansion. Kenji, strategic, pauses at the curb to count cameras and exits. Akiko, glamorous and amused, lifts her sunglasses and lets the city look back at itself, and Aiko, honest nurse, arrives on her bicycle with steamed buns and a paper bag for Hannah's breakfast and Keiko's afternoon. Around these 4, choice will orbit, collide, and burn. Aiko hands Hana the bonds and a folded clinic pamphlet about home care subsidies. Paper that could become medicine, she says softly. Hana slides it under Keiko's flowered handkerchief in the tin, as if the cloth could bless bureaucracy. Ryuji notices the gesture and memorizes it. In his world, papers become weapons. Here, papers wish to be bridges. Akiko buys a small canvas, alleyway lanterns crossed by a single black stroke, and turns it over as if reading tea leaves. "You've made accident into alphabet," she murmurs. "Be careful what you learn to spell." Hana smiles. "I spell the same word every day." "Survival?" Akiko asks. "Dignity," Hana answers, and Akiko's mouth curves, respect admitted without applause. Kenji brings news in a tone sanded smooth. The port is quiet. Too quiet. It means Daigo is building a ladder you can't see yet. Ryuji nods once. Start closing doors that open to harm, open doors that close on mercy. Kenji studies him, searching for the old arithmetic, and finds a new equation he doesn't yet trust but can't refute. First choice arrives disguised as convenience. The gallery offers Hana a studio, warm, empty, branded. Leave the street, the director coaxes. It dilutes the myth. Hana looks at the crossing, at children waiting for their turn to add thumbprint stars to her practice paper. Myth is for people who can afford distance, she says. I can't. She keeps the street and the draft in the contract that said she could. Second choice comes to Ryuji in an envelope inked with an old seal, an invitation to a meeting of respect from a clan that measures respect and fear. Kenji recommends attendance, Daigo insists. Akiko shrugs and says costumes are sometimes required to sneak medicine into a palace. Ryuji tears the seal cleanly and writes a reply in his own hand. I do not pay respect to hunger disguised as order. It is a line he knows will cost him. Anchor objects acquire weight. The blue cup acquires a tiny chip on its lip and still holds water like a promise. Ryuji's obsidian beads acquire a warmer sheen from being handled less like a weapon and more like a pause. Keiko's handkerchief acquires the faint crescent of an ink thumb, which she refuses to wash away. Everyday things become altars to the future. Daigo performs generosity in public, delivering a new roll-up banner for Hana's tarp, Shibuya's rising star. The font screams where her handwriting breathes. Hana thanks him politely, then tapes over the banner with cardboard and a marker. Pay if you can. Take if you must. Say your name, we'll remember. Daigo laughs for the cameras. Later, his jaw hardens and the car's dark. Aiko proposes a third choice. Teach at the clinic on Sundays. Kids, elders, anyone who needs a steady hand. Hana wants to say yes. Keiko's meds say maybe. Ryuji, unasked, says, I'll cover the cost of paper. Hana's chin lifts. Then cover it anonymously, and not through anything that breathes like your world. He bows to the terms as one bows to a teacher's chalk. Akiko and Hana share a cigarette neither smokes, letting it burn in the ashtray like a timer while they talk. You like him, Akiko says. I respect him, Hana answers. Respect is stage 1, Akiko replies, eyes on the ember. Stage 2 is risk. Hana tips the cigarette into water, extinguishing both flame and prophecy. Stage 3 is boundaries, she says. Stage 4 is breakfast. Kenji tests a boundary of his own and visits Keiko with Aiko, carrying soup made by hands that usually write directives. He listens as Keiko tells a story about Hana at 5, painting with soy sauce on old newspapers because money for ink was a later miracle. Kenji leaves with a new superstition, that some people are not to be interfered with because they are already negotiating with fate. Ryuji receives a message with a photo of Hana's stairwell and a timestamp. No caption. He forwards it to no one, walks the 6 flights, and replaces the dead bulb outside Keiko's door with his own hands. When Hannah returns from the market, she looks up at the warm circle of light and down at his suit jacket dusted with plaster. "You own skyscrapers," she says. "Tonight I own a ladder," he replies. A small riot of kindness erupts at the Sunday clinic class. Aiko lays out cheap brushes, Hannah shows how to paint rain by painting the air first, Ruji stands by the door, unseen by most, and watches a grandfather's tremor steady when color meets paper. Daigo appears on the sidewalk and watches Ruji watching softness, filing away a weapon he intends to use later. The night before the meeting of respect, Kenji offers one last exit. "We can play their game and change the board later," he says. Ruji ties his tie slowly, fingers deliberate as vows. "Every time I have played their game, I became their piece," he answers. "Tonight I will be a rule." Kenji exhales, then pockets a plan B shaped like mercy and force in equal parts. Hannah stands at her window with the ruined first canvas propped against the sill, black and gold threading dawn. She cannot see where Ruji goes, only the direction, into a room that eats names. She places the blue cup beside the painting, fills it to the chipped lip, and whispers to the city, "If you must spill, spill where we can make a road." In the distance, somewhere under neon and steel, a door closes very softly, a different door begins to open. The meeting hall in Ginza glows with low light that makes every surface reflect hierarchy. Ruji steps in without entourage, wearing a black suit stripped of insignia, neutral, heretical. Around a long table sit men who survived different eras of fear and never forgave the future for arriving. Daigo occupies the lower corner, eyes glinting like a child watching a fire he started. The host raises a glass. "We hear you are turning merchant." Ruji bows slightly. "I'm turning human." Murmurs. A laugh. Then knives disguised as compliments. Kenji stands outside with a briefcase that is both shield and confession. Inside, a contract, the syndicate's withdrawal from arms smuggling in exchange for new legitimacy in art and cultural exports, a mirror trick that might save lives while saving face. He waits for a scream or gunshot that doesn't come. When Ruji exits an hour later, his tie is gone, his shirt collar open, but his pulse steady. "It's done," he says. "They agreed?" "They didn't kill me," he answers. That's their version of yes. Meanwhile, Hannah spends the evening repainting the bus mural where children left smudged stars. The air smells of oil and ozone, rain threatens but holds back. Aiko watches her from the curb, texting updates to Kenji without names. "How do you keep painting when everything fades?" she asks. Hannah dips her brush, smiles faintly. "If I stop because it fades, I'd stop breathing too." Daigo's retaliation arrives the next morning in subtler form. The gallery's window shatters, no theft, only warning. The director calls Hannah trembling. "They said you belong to dangerous men." Hannah patches the window herself with cardboard and tape, writes across it in marker, "Light still enters." The crowd takes photos, the news calls it performance art. Ruji learns of it hours later from Akiko. "They're testing you," she says. "They expect you to cage what you can't control." He sets his phone down carefully. Then they'll learn what happens when freedom learns to fight back. She laughs once. "You're turning poetic." That's more terrifying than rage. He goes to Hannah's stand as dusk folds the city. The cardboard still covers the window, slogan glowing in street lamp light. "You could have called me," he says quietly. "To do what?" she asks. "Fix glass?" "No," he admits, to remind me why it was worth breaking. She looks at him then, truly looks, and says, because it shows how a light behaves when it's wounded. They share silence thick as broth. Aiko joins them with thermos cups of barley tea, setting them between conversation and comfort. Ryuji holds the cup with both hands as Hana taught him. You learn quickly, Aiko says. He's been practicing, Hana adds. Mostly failing, he answers, and they all laugh, the kind of laugh that saves minutes from despair. Kenji arrives with a document that could bankrupt half the syndicate, records Daigo accidentally left visible in his ambition. We can destroy him, Kenji says. Or we can teach him. Ryuji folds the paper once, twice. Teaching requires patience, he says. And a classroom. Hana listens from her tarp, pretending to paint, realizing that even men of violence long for quieter methods. Night draws a different line. Hana's mother grows weaker, breaths counting time slower. Hana paints until dawn to afford silence. Ryuji comes at sunrise with food she won't eat and sits beside the oxygen hum. Keiko opens her eyes briefly. The accountant, she whispers, remembering. He brings calm. Ryuji bows his head as if receiving a title holy and unbearable. The day of Keiko's passing arrives with cherry blossoms falling out of season, as if time forgot its calendar. The small apartment fills with neighbors, Aiko's soft directions, incense coiling. Hana kneels, brush forgotten in her lap. Ryuji stands behind, unsure where to put his hands, his authority useless here. When everyone leaves, he stays to wash cups. She lets him. I thought death would close something, she says finally. It just opens rooms with no doors. He nods. My world builds rooms like that on purpose. She wipes her eyes with the flowered handkerchief, now cleaned by accident. Then burn them, she says. Build ones with windows. He looks at her, half teacher, half student, and says, help me draw them. A week later, Daigo vanishes. Rumor says he fled to Osaka. Truth says Ryuji's choice of patience was mercy disguised as exile. Kenji rearranges the syndicate's skeleton into something that can walk in daylight. Akiko buys out a corrupt importer and rebrands it as an art logistics firm. You've created a legal empire, she tells Ryuji. You'll hate it. I already do, he replies, but at least it breathes clean. Hana paints larger now, canvases that take entire walls. One depicts a black river turning gold near the mouth, a metaphor obvious yet irresistible. Critics call it urban enlightenment. She calls it Tuesday. Money follows, cautiously. She hides most of it in envelopes labeled for others, Aiko's clinic, Kenji's legal fund for street kids, Akiko's secret philanthropy. One evening, Ryuji arrives with 2 tickets to an art charity auction where her piece headlines. You don't need me there, Hana says. I need to see what my old world looks like when it applauds yours, he answers. She hesitates, then nods. We're something that doesn't apologize, she says. He smiles. You've been reading Akiko. The auction glitters. Cameras flash. The mural-sized canvas sells to an anonymous bidder, Ryuji, of course, through Kenji. He doesn't need possession, just preservation. Hana suspects but doesn't confirm. They stand near a window later, overlooking neon veins below. You changed your empire, she says. You changed its pulse, he replies. Outside, rain begins again, the same rain from the first day, patient and endless. Hana holds out her palm, Ryuji covers it with his own. You'll stain the suit, she says. Let it, he answers. Water darkens the fabric, spreading like ink becoming road. They both watch it happen, and for the first time, no one tries to clean it away. Spring wraps Tokyo in petals and pollen, the air thick with beginnings that don't ask permission. Hana sets her tarp beneath the cherry trees in Yoyogi Park. Her canvas is brighter now, lines looser, laughter louder. She paints not for coins today, but for memory, Keiko's smile folded into every brushstroke. People pause to watch. A child offers her a petal as payment. "Deal," she says, tucking it behind her ear. Across the path, Ruji watches quietly, dressed down in a gray sweater that looks foreign on him. Kenji joins him, hands in pockets, a rare Sunday off. "You've started visiting without reason," he notes. "There's reason," Ruji replies. "It just refuses math." Kenji follows his gaze to Hana. "Then you're doomed," he says softly, without irony. "And maybe that's good." He leaves before Ruji can answer, the blessing hidden inside the warning. Later, Hana packs her paints, finds Ruji crouched near the park pond feeding koi with crumbs of taiyaki. "They like you," she says. "They like sugar," he corrects. "Same thing," she replies. He offers her a piece, and she laughs at the clumsy way he breaks it. "You were raised to dissect power, not pastries." "Teach me both," he says. They walk the park's edge until dusk, the silence between them gentle instead of loaded. "Do you ever miss who you were?" she asks. He thinks. "No. I miss who I thought I had to be." She smiles faintly. "That's better art than I make." "It's messier," he admits. "Then you're improving." Back in Shibuya, Aiko's clinic overflows. New patients from streets once ruled by the syndicate now come for care instead of fear. Hana volunteers evenings, painting ceiling tiles for pediatric rooms. "If they look up, they should see clouds," she says. Ruji helps hang them, standing on a ladder too short for his comfort. "You've learned balance," Aiko teases. "She's a dangerous teacher," he answers. One night, while cleaning brushes, Hana notices the blue cup leaking faintly from its chipped lip. She sighs, sets it aside on the sill. Ruji notices, frowns as though it were a wound. "You can replace it," he says. "It won't hold the same water," she answers. "Then keep it dry," he offers. "No," she smiles. "It needs to remember why it broke." The heart scene begins not in grand gesture but in exhaustion. After a day of hospital murals and rain, Hana falls asleep sitting against the wall, brush still in hand. Ruji finds her there, hair sticking to her cheek, paint flecks on her wrist like tiny constellations. He kneels, covers her with his jacket, careful not to wake her. For a long moment, he just breathes beside her, unguarded, a man who once commanded silence now learning how to be quiet. She wakes halfway through the night to find him still there, dozing upright, head tilted against the window. She studies him in the city's flickering light, the harsh lines of his face softened into something human. Gently, she brushes a petal off his shoulder. "You'll catch a cold," she whispers. His eyes open, slow, calm. "Then you'll have to paint me better," he murmurs. Morning arrives with smell of miso and dust. Ruji insists on making breakfast, fails spectacularly, fills the kitchen with smoke. Hana laughs until she cries. "You're a danger to cookware," she gasps. "I built empires," he protests. "Not pancakes." "Good," she says, opening the window. "Then start with smaller kingdoms." Outside, life continues. Daigo's absence becomes legend. Akiko's logistics company thrives. Kenji drafts documents that could one day turn Ruji's empire into a legitimate foundation. Each carries a fragment of the same conversion, violence retranslated into structure, cruelty transcribed into care. And at the center, Hannah's colors expanding into corners power forgot to see. At the gallery, a new show opens, The Black Road. Hannah stands before her largest work, a storm of brushstrokes where ink bleeds into gold dust. Critics swarm, speaking of urban transcendence, postmodern wabi-sabi. She smiles politely, but her eyes search the crowd only for one man. Ruji appears late, no tie, eyes steady. "You turned an accident into prophecy," he says. "You gave it space to grow," she replies. They slip out early, into drizzle that blurs neon. "Where now?" he asks. "Nowhere rich," she says. They end up at a ramen stall near the river, sharing a single bowl because the cook insists on generosity. "What's next for you?" he asks. "More light," she answers simply. "And you?" "Learning to let it in." A delivery boy rushes past, spilling soy broth on Ruji's sleeve. He freezes, the echo of the first day flaring in both their minds. Then Hannah laughs, dabbing at the stain with a napkin. "History repeats until we learn its joke," she says. He relaxes, lets her clean it. The pattern is complete, spill to meeting, mess to meaning. Kenji watches from a distance, hidden by rain, phone vibrating with news. One last deal, old associates refusing the new order, a small pocket of violence that might explode. He types one message to Ruji, "Careful. The past doesn't retire." Ruji reads it, sighs, pockets the phone without reply. "Problem?" Hannah asks. "Nothing, that can't wait until dessert." Later, standing by the river where lanterns float like drifting prayers, he tells her, "There are things I can't erase. Even if I make everything clean, blood remembers its map." She touches his hand. "Then draw over it." Art doesn't erase, it layers. He looks at her, truly believing it might be that simple. "You make crime sound holy," he says. "Only if it repents," she replies. The lanterns drift farther, reflections trembling on water. "One day," she says, "I want to paint this river in daylight." "I'll hold the canvas," he answers. Their fingers intertwine like the ink and gold in her paintings, distinct but inseparable. Above them, the city glows, forgiving nothing yet allowing beauty to exist anyway. Summer's heat paints Tokyo in sweat and sirens. Hannah's murals spread across Shibuya like veins of color, tourists take selfies, children press palms to the walls as if feeling heartbeat. The press crowns her the street poet of paint. But fame carries shadow. One morning, a newspaper headline screams, "Yakuza fortune wandered through artist's charity?" A photograph captures Ruji at her exhibition, cropped to imply everything, reveal nothing. The air thickens with whispers. Hannah reads the article twice, quietly, jaw set. At the clinic, Aiko watches reporters hover outside like flies. "You could sue," she says. "That costs time," Hannah answers. And truth needs quiet more than noise. She goes home, closes the blinds, and paints black over gold until the canvas becomes storm again. Ruji calls, voice low. "They've turned your gift into evidence." "And you?" she asks. "They've turned my silence into guilt." He pauses, knowing explanation would sound like excuse. "Let me fix it." "You can't clean ink with blood," she says, and hangs up. Kenji storms into Ruji's office. The leak came from inside. Daigo's remnants want headlines. Then by them silence, Ruji orders. "No," Kenji counters, "by the truth, fund the investigations publicly. If we hide, we lose." Ruji nods slowly. "Then make it loud." And make it honest. Hana, unaware, continues painting through heat. Aiko arrives with lunch and worry. You're shaking, she says. It's just summer. No, Aiko says softly, it's pressure. Hana stops, wipes her forehead, leaves a smear of black across her temple. Let them think what they want, she says. I paint for those who can't afford rumors. The next evening, Akiko arrives in heels clicking like punctuation. The governor's office is hosting a gala, she announces. Theme, Rebirth of the City. You two are invited, jointly. Hana laughs once, bitter. They invite us to watch our names burn politely. Then attend, Akiko says. Control the fire. Ruji shows up at Hana's apartment that night, standing outside in rain without umbrella. When she opens the door, he looks drenched, unguarded. If we don't stand together, he says, they'll decide what our story means. She studies him, the man who once feared exposure now offering himself to cameras. Fine, she says. But no lies. No lies, he agrees. Aiko and Akiko join forces preparing her, Aiko choosing simplicity, Akiko demanding elegance. You're painting tonight, Akiko says. With fabric and breath. Hana stands before the mirror in a plain indigo dress that somehow glows. If this is war, she says, I'll fight softly. Kenji briefs Ruji before the event. Press will bait you. Smile and redirect. The goal is peace, not pride. What if they attack her? Ruji asks. Then let her defend herself. She's stronger than any of us, Kenji replies. That's why they fear her. The Metropolitan Art Hall blazes with chandeliers and hypocrisy. Cameras bloom like flowers. Hana enters beside Ruji, the crowd's hum splitting into admiration and scandal. Reporters shout questions. Are you his mistress or his muse? Neither, she says calmly. I'm his equal. Flashbulbs pop, Ruji's lips twitch, half pride, half awe. On stage, a host introduces them as symbols of transformation. Hana grips the podium, heart pounding, voice steady. Transformation isn't clean, she says. Ink stains. Gold cracks. But beauty doesn't ask permission, it insists on existing. Applause ripples, even cynics hesitate to interrupt truth. Then a journalist yells, Ruji Sato, are your donations funded by crime? The room gasps. Ruji steps forward. Every yen that fed the hungry or bought medicine came from labor now clean. If redemption offends you, you're free not to eat what it provides. Murmurs swell, approval and outrage wrestling under chandeliers. Hana takes his hand, lifts it for all to see. This is the same hand that ruined my painting, she says. And the same hand that helped rebuild my mother's roof. People can change. I've seen it. Cameras flash like lightning. The moment freezes, two figures against a storm, holding on. Afterward, outside under the marquee, Kenji exhales. You just declared war on gossip, he says. Good, Ruji answers. Wars end when truth gets loud. Akiko smirks. You also made half the city fall in love with you too. That helps. They walk home without words. The rain returns, fine as mist. Hana finally speaks. You didn't have to defend me. I didn't, he replies. I defended us. She looks up at the gray sky, smiles faintly. Then next time, let me start the speech. In her apartment, she sets the blue cup between them on the table, fills it halfway, offers him a brush. Your turn, she says. Paint. He hesitates, then draws a single imperfect circle. "What's it mean?" she asks. "Continuing," he says. They watch the circle darken, dissolve, then merge with the paper's fibers, a quiet symbol of two lives refusing to stay separate. The morning after the gala smells of wet pavement and leftover electricity. Tokyo's tabloids scream, the artist and the ex-mafioso. Love redeems the underworld? While social feeds split in two camps, those who believe, and those who mock belief itself. Hannah reads none of it. She's on her knees scrubbing paint cups, humming a tune Keiko used to whistle. Ruji appears in the doorway, holding breakfast bentos. "You're early," she says. "I haven't slept," he admits. "That's another kind of early." Kenji and Akiko arrive later with pragmatic storms. "We need training," Akiko declares. "Media, interviews, posture. The city just cast you as its conscience." Hannah laughs. "Consciences don't do press." "Yours does," Akiko says, shoving a stack of questions into her hand. Ruji raises an eyebrow. "You're enjoying this?" "Immensely," Akiko replies. "It's the first redemption arc I can monetize without guilt." For days they rehearse, how to answer, how to smile without surrender. Hannah stumbles, curses, then masters the rhythm. "You were built for diplomacy," Kenji says after watching her turn a trap question into poetry. "No," she answers, "I was built for survival. Diplomacy's just quieter." Ruji listens from the corner, pride and fear intertwined like smoke and incense. A week later comes the next challenge, a benefit auction at the newly legitimized art logistics firm, Akiko's creation, Ruji's funding, Kenji's strategy. The event promises to fund orphan scholarships and public murals. Hannah agrees to headline on one condition: no secrecy. Every yen goes where it says. They all nod. Transparency has become their rebellion. Preparations blur in montages of work and laughter. Hannah trains neighborhood teens to paint, Ruji learns to mix plaster for mural backing. Aiko visits with homemade rice balls and stories that end in laughter even when they start in sorrow. Kenji, ever the ghost, rearranges paperwork so legal roots grow under moral branches. They are building something real, and it feels terrifying. On the eve of the event, Hannah stands before her newest piece, a massive canvas depicting the Shibuya crossing from above, each pedestrian a drop of ink merging into gold light. "It's our story," she says. "Messy, crowded, beautiful." Ruji steps beside her, whispering, "Then I'll bid until I can't afford myself." She smiles. "That's not how redemption works." "I know," he says. "But generosity's addictive. The benefit night glitters like a second chance. Press floods in, donors line the walls. Hannah moves through them with calm grace, Ruji a silent orbit of protection. When the auction begins, her painting fetches a record price, anonymous bidder, of course, though everyone guesses. Applause reigns like absolution. Akiko raises a toast, to beauty that outlives its sins. Then it happens, halfway through speeches, the lights stutter. A projection appears on the gallery wall, leaked security footage from years ago, Ruji overseeing a violent raid, Daigo beside him. Gasps slice the air. Someone screams. Reporters surge. Redemption, a voice shouts. Or manipulation. Hannah turns, pale but steady. Ruji's face hardens, the past, alive again, uninvited. Kenji pushes toward the control booth, shouting for the feed to stop. Akiko intercepts reporters, deflecting with venomous charm. Hannah steps to the podium, heart racing. "That man," she says, pointing to the frozen image of Ruji's younger face, is the reason I can stand here now. People change. If you want proof, look around, none of this would exist without his change. The crowd murmurs, disbelief and awe wrestle in equal measure. Ruji takes the mic from her gently. I don't deny it, he says. I built fear. It paid well. But fear never feeds anyone. I walked away and used that money to feed children. If that offends you, keep your applause, it's not for sale. His voice doesn't rise, it lands. The silence after is heavier than any verdict. Then the lights die completely. A window shatters. Smoke floods the hall, someone sabotage. Panic spreads. Ruji grabs Hannah's wrist. Exit now. She resists, helping Aiko guide an elderly guest out through haze. Kenji and Akiko secure the others. Sirens echo outside. By the time the crowd disperses, Ruji and Hannah stand coughing under neon rain, black ash on her hands like fresh paint. News vans swarm, already editing chaos into headline. Kenji corners Ruji. Daigo's men. Revenge, not exposure. They wanted fear back. Then they'll get justice instead, Ruji says coldly. Hannah grabs his arm. No violence, she pleads. If you go back, everything breaks. He breathes hard, then exhales. Then I'll build something else. He disappears for 3 days. Hannah paints non-stop, sleep-deprived, terrified. The police clear Ruji's name. He'd been protecting witnesses, not plotting vengeance, but rumors thrive. When he returns, bruised and silent, she nearly hits him with a paintbrush. You left without saying goodbye, she scolds. I needed to see if mercy still worked, he answers. Did it? Yes, he says, and shows her the signed truce, Daigo's last allies agreeing to dissolve the old operations. They stand in the studio, trembling from relief. You ended it, she says. We ended it, he corrects. Your art made mercy look strong. She laughs through tears. Then paint with me. He hesitates. I don't know how. Just follow the spill, she says. He does, black over gold, clumsy and pure. Their fingers meet on wet canvas, smearing color until form disappears. It isn't romance yet, it's resurrection disguised as collaboration. You know this will never be easy, Hannah says softly. The world loves to punish joy. He looks at her. Then let's make joy criminal. She smiles. Deal. When dawn arrives, their mural dries, a phoenix rising from a street puddle, its wings both soot and sunlight. They sit beneath it, backs touching, exhausted. We keep fixing what breaks, she murmurs. That's how things live, he replies. Outside, the city hums awake again, unknowing that redemption has just been painted quietly on one of its walls. Tokyo wakes softer now. 10 years have carved new skylines, but beneath them, color lingers on every wall, murals where children and elders paint side by side. In the heart of Shibuya, a 2-story glass studio hums quietly, the Nakamura Foundation for Art and Healing. Inside, students mix paints in chipped blue cups, deliberate replicas of one that once cracked but never stopped holding water. Hannah, 34, moves through sunlight filtered by vines, hair streaked with gold and gray paint, laughter easy and low. She still paints on the street every Sunday, no stage, no PR, just her tarp, the same corner, the same bow of gratitude. Passers-by still stop, but now they recognize her less from gossip and more from gratitude. The city has learned her palette. Ruji, mid-40s now, steps into the studio carrying groceries and a quiet smile. His suits have given way to linen shirts rolled to the elbow, and a faint scar crosses his knuckle, remnant of the life he left behind. Children call him sensei, though he never teaches painting, he teaches how to stay when it's easier to run. Kenji runs the Foundation's legal wing, grayer but lighter, his old precision now repurposed into kindness. Aiko heads the clinic next door, her walls filled with Hana's murals of blue rivers and phoenix feathers. Akiko travels, funding art centers in cities that forgot their souls. They remain a constellation of survivors who chose usefulness over legend. A wall near the entrance holds the original ruined canvas, preserved behind glass, the one Ruji stained years ago. Visitors stand before it in silence, tracing the black streak turned gold, reading the plaque below, "Every mistake deserves a second draft." Hana catches people staring, sometimes, and tells them softly, "It's more alive than it was new." Outside, the crossing where they met has changed too. The city installed a mural there, a collaboration between Hana and local children. It shows two hands reaching across spilled ink, the space between them filled with light. Tourists call it the handshake of Shibuya. To locals, it's just part of home. In the Foundation's small cafe, Ruji prepares tea the way she once taught him. "You pour slower now," Hana teases. "You drink faster," he counters. She smiles, stirring sugar into her cup. "Maybe we've met in the middle. Maybe that's what love really means," he says. A young painter enters shyly, holding her first sketch, a skyline dripping into water. "It's messy," she apologizes. Hana kneels, studies it. "Messy is alive," she says. "Perfection doesn't breathe." Ruji watches her, remembering the first time she said that to him, when his entire life had been about precision and silence. Later that evening, after the students leave, Hana and Ruji walk through the empty studio. Outside, the city hums like a heartbeat they once feared. "Do you ever miss the noise?" she asks. "Sometimes," he admits. "But then I hear this." He gestures to the soft scrape of brushes and rinse jars, the rustle of canvases drying. It's louder in better ways. They pause by the window where the city glows in quiet oranges and blues. 10 years, Hana says. "I thought time would fix everything." "It didn't," he answers. "We did." She leans against him. "I used to think art couldn't save anyone." "It saved me," he says simply. Aiko arrives carrying homemade mochi, Kenji following with files, Akiko trailing laughter. They sit on the floor, eating and teasing and remembering. "Imagine," Akiko says, "a Mafia boss turned art donor." Ruji grins. "Don't ruin my street cred." Hana laughs, full and bright. "You're too soft for crime now." "And you're too famous for anonymity," he replies. When night deepens, the friends leave. Hana and Ruji stay behind, cleaning brushes like ritual. She looks at his hands, steady, scarred, stained with ultramarine. "You never got rid of the ink," she says. "It's permanent," he answers. "So's forgiveness," she replies. He meets her gaze and nods. They step onto the rooftop terrace where lanterns sway in warm wind. Below, music from a nearby festival drifts upward, mingling with city noise. "Do you remember the first thing you said to me?" she asks. "That I was sorry for the time I took." "You were wrong," she smiles. "You gave it back." He reaches for her hand, their fingers fitting as easily as reflection and light. "We've rebuilt a world out of broken things," he says. "That's what artists and ex-criminals are for," she teases. "To prove there's no such thing as unfixable." They laugh softly, the sound of two people who've run out of fear. Below them, the mural glows under streetlights, the two hands forever almost touching, forever trying. Hannah rests her head on his shoulder. "Do you think it's finished?" she asks. He looks at the painting, then at her. "Art never is," he says. "It just keeps breathing." The camera would pull back now, the city's sea of lights, their small figures against it, the murmur of traffic and rain. A whisper of Keiko's old lullaby drifts through memory, blending with night. The screen fades to gold, the last image, the blue cup on the windowsill, cracked but full of water. What score do you give? 0 to 10. Comment and subscribe.